Good evening, everybody, and the chief and I wanted to stop by just to kind of review a little bit about some of the discussions that have been going on in the community over the last week, to kind of update you on where we are. The chief has brought with him our captain of our detective division, Captain Rich Weston, with over 40 years of experience in the Danbury Police Department. Also, our Deputy Chief Sean McColgan is here as well, and we want to thank them for taking time out of their day as well for being here. I know Principal Donovan is here also, and we appreciate all the good work that he's been doing as well, and of course the board and the superintendent. We became aware of several incidences and issues going on at the high school over the last couple of weeks, and we also have been, I personally become aware through a variety of different social media avenues and outlets and channels by our kids, our students, that have been sharing stuff with pictures, and parents that have called or texted or contacted me regarding incidences of violence at DHS in particular that have become acute and heightened over the last two weeks. So in response to that, the chief has reached out to Principal Donovan. They have been working together probably since last Thursday or so. I think what's frustrating for the community, from what I hear from listening to people, is that it's a very amorphous situation. You can't really put your fingers around and say, well, what exactly happened, right? Part of the problem is that the rumor mill of social media is a different world. It's a game changer when it comes to being able to propagate rumors as fast as you possibly can. And so there's a lot of stuff out there that is just simply not true, but it's become stated as fact. So I'll give you a couple examples. I've seen posted on Facebook people saying there were 15 fights in the last week. That's not true. There were not 15 fights in the last week. There were, the best of what Principal Donovan can count, don't hold them exactly this exact number, about 7 incidences over the last 2 weeks. We saw one recent text today from one student to a parent that was forwarded to us that there were 5 weapons recovered on Friday. That is absolutely not true. There's not been a single weapon recovered in any way, shape, or form. So these things continue to propagate through the social media system. They are alarming students and understandably alarming parents. And when you read that stuff, it's scary. And you obviously should be concerned. We're here to say that we have full faith and confidence in the administration and the board. Dr. Pasquarella, we are united in a zero tolerance policy as it relates to any acts of violence within any of our buildings. I know that there have been several arrests. Of course, people want to know how many, who are the names. Some of these people are minors. They're protected under the law. We can't just go out and share the names. I know there have been suspensions and certainly there will be movements for expulsion for those individuals that are involved. So the takeaway is this. There are roughly 2 small groups of students that are trying to disrupt the educational process for 3,000 students. We are not going to let them do that. It's just that simple. And as Principal Donovan said in his email, the law says we have to give a student an education. We will do that. It's our moral responsibility. But that does not mean it has to be at Danbury High School. If that's what we need to do to protect the rest of the students, that their educational experience is disrupted, and that's what we'll do. We have had a heightened police presence over the last 4 days. The last 2 days have been quiet. I personally was in the building on Monday. I'll be in the building tomorrow morning early. I did warn the principal to let him know. And specifically just to show the kids that we are concerned, but we're also recognizing that we have a safe environment for our students. I know that the PD is tracking through some of these issues and have been meeting with some of the kids involved to try to understand a little bit what the extent of the disagreement is. But I just want to assure people that we believe that Danbury High School is safe and that we take every step we can to mitigate risk for our students. You can never, ever promise anybody nobody's ever going to get hurt any time for any reason. That's impossible to do. But the reality is that that building, we had 5 police officers on a daily basis with a contingent of 5 to 7 5 to 7 safety advocates with a very seasoned administrative staff with 200 teachers in the building along with support staff have a handle on what's happening in the building and escalating and reporting those reports upwards so that we can respond effectively. We're your partners. We don't run the schools, we all do, but we're here to support what you do and to make sure that you have the resources you need. So with that, I'm going to just toss it over to the chief a little bit, and we can take any questions or comments from the board. So, Chief.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having me. Really not much to add to what the mayor said, just to assure and reassure everyone that the police department is working with the school and the administration to ensure the safety of the students. As the mayor said, we have, in addition to the school resource officers, we have other officers on the premises, on the perimeter, and for the last few days we have added to that just to ensure that the students understand that we take their concerns seriously and that we will address any issues. With regard to the fighting that's been going on, we have already taken action as far as we're concerned to address those issues, but now what we're doing with our investigation really is to try to get to the root causes so that we can work with the administration to develop some long-term solutions.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, Kate.
Just a quick question, I'm sure you guys have already done this, but I just want to inquire about the entrances and the exits at the high school, to make sure you guys have sort of evaluated them. And again, we hear lots of things through social media, which I don't want to propagate anything, but I just want to verify that that's something that you guys have a handle on.
Yeah, so post Sandy Hook, unfortunately, we all had to do a very extensive assessment of every single building in the city of Danbury, but specifically our schools, and we have reports on all the buildings. When we did the upgrades to Danbury High School that were open 2 years ago now, we incorporated a lot of the recommendations that you now see there. For example, having the single entrance in and out, all of that is, all that glass is now shatterproof glass. It's all through there. We had to wait for that, in fact, and we did a lot of extensive work in closing up the back area. You used to be able to drive your car right up into the cafeteria. You remember how it used to be set up, so that's all been fenced off now. You can't get in and out there any other way. It's still a challenging building in the sense that there are, at last count, roughly 45 to 50 different exits and entrance or doors, at least that access the exterior. And they're there for fire safety reasons, so not necessarily you can't chain them off or block them off. So our staff has to be extra vigilant in terms of monitoring those to not let people in from the outside, which is, I think, our the greatest concern all of us have, right? It's not necessarily our own kids, it's what a kid might do from somewhere else. So we'll continue to do that, but to the extent that we've implemented all of the security procedures you see now, those were a reflection of that study. Those studies are kept, they're on file. We can review them in private. We don't let them out. They're not FOIable because we don't want to let out the floor plans for the buildings in case somebody wants to do harm.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Did
I just
Dan want to say anything, or
you want to mention anything about the meeting we're having on Wednesday?
Oh, that's a good point. So Dr. Sale's taking the lead on creating a task force, if you will, or a committee that's looking at some of the larger issues. There are, myself, I've agreed to serve on it. Chief Ridnour is going to serve on it. Dr. Sale will serve on it. We've got some parents as well as clergy, people that are connected in the community. I think just to foster communications back and forth and to make sure that everybody's sharing the right information. The biggest frustrating thing for me is the stuff that you see that comes through is so wrong, and then it gets repeated so many times. It's a telephone game you used to play when you were a kid, multiplied like a billion times, and it scares people, and I understand why it would. If I read that and never my child, I'd be very scared. So I get it. So we've got to figure out a way to keep those lines of communication open directly to parents so that they know when, what, where, what, how, and also how they can help. If there's things that are happening or they're hearing things that we want, them to be part of the solution. And also our students, as I was there Monday, I was saying, look, if you see something, say something. Don't be afraid to say something. You never get in trouble for saying something. It's if you're out there not saying anything, then that becomes an issue. I also do want to say, if you are posting threatening things on Snapchat, if you are sending threatening texts, you will be prosecuted for the full extent of the law. And our detectives have a unique ability to track down who sent the text, who did the Snapchat, because they have relationships with all of the social media channels, and they have the weight of law enforcement behind them to get access to that data a lot quicker than anybody else could. So these kids or young people will get a knock on the door.
Just a question first. Is Mr. Duncan also going to address this, or just the mayor and the, is there?
You're certainly welcome to. Mr. Fowler, you have anything to add?
What do you?
Just to hear from you, your perspective on last week and.
Last week was a rough week. You know, it certainly was. It was for me, it was for everybody, it was for the kids, it was for
No,
the students.
just use that.
They can hear me. I'm good.
No, you got
Flo,
it.
it's Flo.
Flo,
Yeah,
sorry, Flo.
sorry.
Chief man. As I was saying, it was a tough week, you know, and I think the mayor hit all the highlights. It was a specific small group of students that caused a lot of turmoil in the building. There were not 20 fights, there were not 17 fights, there were 7. And each one of those 7, 5 of them were directly related to an ongoing issue that started in the community last June, carried over the summer, and is still going on now. The other 2 were just related things that don't happen. Those altercations, the amount of altercations and disturbances at Danbury High School are not the norm at Danbury High School. You know, we're getting back to the norm now. It took a lot to get there. It took a lot on our administrative staff to try to figure this out. Because as the mayor alluded to, it's no longer 2 people just saying something. Now we have to spend a tremendous amount of time tracking things through technology that we are not awesome at, and Snapchat and all these other places that we need to find out whose handle is what, and believe it or not, what they are saying, because sometimes we can't even understand what they're saying when they type things. So there's takes a lot of time to get to them, and we ended up putting a lot of people out of school this past week. And you know, it's not something we take a lot of pride in, but I do realize in a school our size that I cannot let a small amount of people disrupt the school and bring up the anxiety to where it was that we get rumors. There were, without going into specifics, 3 different incidents that we're talking about that they weren't related, but they were all brought together at the conclusion of Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of last week that just heightened everything up. And I'd be happy to share with you, it involves kids' names and stuff, so I can't do that, but it was like a perfect storm of 3 things coming together that weren't related to each other, and that's what caused the problem.
So, Dan, let me just make a comment, and last week was very unusual. Along with those things that were going on, we had New England Association of Schools sends a team in to evaluate a high school every 10 years. It was last week, and how many were there, Dan?
18?
18. And I was at the exit interview, and I met with the chairman. All I heard was what they witnessed were respectful students, caring adults, a school that's working, kids that are learning in classes. I heard nothing about any of this. So when Dan says small group, we take it serious, but it happens in pockets. But these are strangers walking through your halls, looking at this with their own eyes, making those comments to us. So I felt good about that. For this board here, this meeting we're having on Wednesday, we have representatives from the Hispanic community. I've got folks in the NAACP. I've got others. What we talked about was not about only last week, but how we can come together collaboratively and work in mentoring. There's some families that are in crisis. We're meeting with the Family Intervention Group with the housing project. So it's a multifaceted approach. You're breaking up the fights, one thing, but there's some anger among kids. There's some families involved. This is not just the youngsters. These are families. And these are neighborhood issues. So that's why the chief is there. That's why we're bringing in the housing unit. That's why we're bringing in the ministers and other folks that unit or the health department, because there's some medical issues. So I think if we work all together, we would get to it. So in a way, maybe this was a shot across the bow in a lot of ways, but to read things like a check, hey, I'm at work right now, but I just found out that one of these seniors found out from one of the safety advocates that 3 guns were actually found on a student last Friday. There were 5 in total, but 3 were found on a student. I just went around with the whole mess of people, caused a lot of angst, not true, but there's so many of these things that go on that we can't control. We can't control. But, you know, I welcome for parents to walk around, make an appointment. I'm proud of the work that we have up there. We have a problem, there's no question. But I think we need to just zero in on the problem and not incriminate the other youngsters that are there. Because they're wonderful kids wanting to get an education that we should protect. So I think some of the things that we're gonna do are gonna be helpful, but it's not a school problem alone. I think that's why the mayor, that's why Patrick, that's why everybody's listening, we can do this together, and I appreciate that. So
And I would like to say,
That's it.
now that I'm up here, that, you know, we left Wednesday afternoon after NEAS left as a staff, a complete high, because NEAS basically said everything we knew they were going to do, the instruction, the connection with kids, the processes we have in place at Danbury High School work, and they work well for kids. Where we need some recommendations or, you know, facilities and things like that, but we left there and then got hit with this right after it, and it just brought us all right back down. I would like to thank the mayor, the police chief, the detectives that did this. They did a fantastic job. And I couldn't even imagine how they would figure out where that Snapchat/group thing came from, and they figured it out on Monday morning at 10 o'clock. It was done. They interviewed the kids, they did everything they had to do, and they found out what it was. So, you know, I can't thank them enough. Dr. Sal over the weekend, the cabinet for all their open discussions, the mayor was on the phone with me and all that. It was really a team effort. And, you know, I know people want it done a lot quicker, but one thing I won't do is put out false information or make a guess. I won't do that. So until I know for exactly what I'm saying and where it's coming from, that's when I have to wait. That's why it was 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock on Saturday and not 7 o'clock in the morning, because we were still all connecting with everybody trying to find out this information. But I thank them a lot.
Anybody else have any? Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dan.
And,
Thanks.
Chief and Mr. Mayor, thank you all so much for.
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
did, I had just one quick thing, just because it's relevant to this, and Dr. Sal, what are the words?
Dr. Sal alluded to is, and we'll talk about this more very briefly during the discussion phase, but as far as the NEAS report goes, I had the pleasure of also sitting in to listen to the debrief with the leader of that group, and while it was an oral debrief and a more detailed summary is coming, some of the things to know in the preliminary findings as some of the strongest attributes fell along the lines of positive school climate and safe and secure homes for students, creating a model for a widely diverse community. And that is after a year of self-study and interviewing and working with the teachers and the students. So these were their words and their feelings about how they felt about the school. And I just want to make sure that that doesn't get lost in some of the conversation, so thank you.
Thank you.